Welcome back to the GSMC Baseball Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Sports Network. I'm your host, Sam Menzie. We have a great show for you today. All the topics today are going to be about the trade deadline. They're going to be separated in different ways, which you'll see. But yeah, it's trade deadline season in baseball nowadays. It does end tomorrow at 6 o'clock, so I'm very excited for that. There's been a ton of trades going on, so I'm going to go over all of them, give my predictions as well for the trades that have not happened. I'm sure trades will happen while I'm on air as well, so we'll be talking about all that, and let's get into the show for today. Before we get into all this, though, I'd like to ask you to please like and follow the show. We do get a number of questions from viewers, so to ensure that your question does get read in the air, please use the link, gsmcpodcast.net. Relators love the show. Relators mean a lot, so thank you so much for that. And let's get into the show for today. All right, as I said, our entire show today is going to be about the trade deadline, focusing on that, and I'm very, very excited to end up, talking about it with you guys, giving my personal thoughts on it, and just going over all the trade deadline stuff. So let's get into it. So I've been a baseball fan my entire life. I'm 18 years old. I've watched 18 trade deadlines. I've really been into it maybe for 6 or 7 years now, fully into the trade deadline, reading rumors, seeing everything. And I can never remember a deadline where we've been this active before the actual day of the deadline. Thursday really, deals started going down relatively significant. Friday after my show, Zach Eflin got traded, which we'll talk about as well, which is a big trade. Over the weekend, of course, I wasn't on air. Huge trades went down, which of course we'll talk about as well. So there's been a ton of movement for this trade deadline before the day, which has really never happened before, I'd say, in my time at least. This amount of significant trades, and I wanted to go over all of them, so let's get into it. So the first segment we are going to be talking about is going to be dedicated to what I believe is the biggest and most significant trade of the entire deadline so far, which is Isaac Paredes being traded to the Chicago Cubs. We'll also be tying this fully with the Rays as well, who of course have had a crazy deadline. I also did talk about on Friday, Randy Arozarena being traded to Seattle, which obviously was a huge significant trade. So if you want to see my thoughts on a different Rays trade, please go ahead and check out that. But yeah, this is one of the most shocking trades I've seen in a long time as a baseball fan, and let's get into it. So, going into this deadline, Isaac Paredes was, in my opinion, and a lot of people's opinion, the best player available. I'm not really counting Tarek Skubal because I don't really think he's available, quote unquote. I just think these are rumors that really aren't going to be ever true. So, at least the best position player available, I think he's better than Luis Robert, and that's what I clearly thought. Paredes has consistently been one of the best third basemen in baseball, one of the best hitters in baseball since getting traded from Detroit to Tampa Bay a few years ago. And I had heard a lot of rumors that the Rays were planning on trading him or were likely to trade him, even from Jeff Passan himself, who of course is one of the most reliable people out there, probably the most. And my thought always was, no way. I'm sorry, I understand what the Rays are doing. They don't think this year is really going to be competitive for them, so they want to rebuild for next year, which is fine. That's why he traded Arozarena, even with the years of control. I went over more of that, why that makes sense. If you might have the video if you want to see that. But I was like, you know what, Paredes is a superstar type player. You look at his hitting stats, you look at how consistently good he has been since getting there to Tampa Bay. I just thought there was no way they would trade him with how good of a player he was. And not only did they trade him, they traded him to the Cubs. The Cubs, who made it very clear that they were not buying at this deadline, and then get the best player available, which blew my mind. So I wanted to just go over all this and just get my thoughts on it. So first off, thoughts on the trade for the Cubs. My reaction to this was insane. I was absolutely shocked. Now, I want to say that actually over the weekend I was in Florida, doing personal things, I'll say, and I actually saw 2 Rays games. So I saw Isaac Paredes' last at bat and last game as a Ray, so that was nice for me. And then in the parking lot of my hotel right after I got home from the Tampa Bay Rays game, I saw he got traded, and my reaction was insane. First of all, wow, I can't believe they traded him, and second of all, they traded him to who? They traded him to the Cubs, which was crazy because, again, I thought the Cubs were selling, and it seems like they are. They just got Paredes. So why this trade makes sense for them is because Paredes is not a rental, of course. He is under control until 2028. You have 3 full years of him on your team. So even though the Cubs are selling for this year, they're saying, you know what, even though this year hasn't really gone our way, we don't envision ourselves being competitive this year. In the years in the future, we will be. And we want a superstar type player to take us to the promised land, and we think Isaac Paredes can be that type of player. And guess what? I agree with them. I think this was a fantastic trade by the Cubs to be able to capitalize on this and getting Paredes. Even though you are selling, you're not selling and buying, of course, getting the top player on the trade market. So Just an incredible trade, in my opinion, by Chicago. Be able to get Paredes just out of nowhere. I mean, all the rumors we had heard was the Yankees and the Dodgers were kind of in a bidding war for him, which I never really believed because I didn't really think it made sense. I didn't really think the Rays would want to trade Paredes to a direct rival in the Yankees. I just never thought either of those teams made much sense. But the Cubs were just a team I did not have at all on my radar for a Paredes trade. Just incredible, and wow, what a trade here. Now, the Cubs in this trade did give up, first of all, Christopher Morel. He was the main part of this trade, who has been their third baseman for a little while now, a former top prospect for them, who has been very inconsistent coming to the big leagues, and he was traded to Tampa Bay. Now, a lot of people are saying that the Rays fleeced the Cubs in this trade. I'm seeing a big outcry on social media, like how could the Cubs do this? Why would they trade Morel? All this kind of stuff, and I don't get why. I kind of think the furthest from that. I love this trade for Chicago, and I'm not really a big fan of it for Tampa. Now, of course, Tampa will probably, make all the guys they got in this trade future superstars because I said this, but I'm just not seeing it. So, going back to Paredes on the Cubs, the one thing I've talked about with the Cubs is that I really think they are missing a superstar type player. I thought that's really been their problem for the past 2 or 3 years now when they've been trying to be competitive, and I think getting that in Paredes is a great sign. I mean, I think Paredes can be that type of player that you build your team around with how good he's been. I feel like a lot of people don't really realize how fantastic Isaac Paredes is of a player. I mean, again, since coming to Chicago, he's been one of the best third basemen in all of baseball, maybe the best behind Jose Ramirez, who is consistently just always the best. It's insane. I mean, since coming to Tampa Bay, he had a 116 weighted runs created plus in his first year, 137 last year, and then 131 this year so far. That's incredible level of consistency. He doesn't play the greatest third base, but he's not awful over there. He has versatility. He can play first base pretty well. I think you can stick him in the outfield if you need. Not really his main position, but if you need to, you can. So Paredes is one of the best consistent pure hitters in all of baseball, and I love this move for them. I think it was a great job by the Cubs to be able to get the superstar type player I think they've been missing for a long, long time. And going into next year, you now have someone to build around. You now have someone in that lineup. You can say, okay, you know what? This is our superstar type player. I mean, you have a lot of good players in that lineup. Don't get me wrong. Cody Bellinger, Nico Horner, Dansby Swanson, Ian Happ. But none of them, to me, are as good as Isaac Paredes. So being able to get him, being able to get a guy that you can build your team around, look to for the future, for the next 3 years, you have control of him. And, who's to say you won't give him a long-term contract soon? Or even longer than that, you can point to him and say, this guy's going to be in the middle of our lineup. He's going to be the guy we build around, the guy we market around, and I love this trade for them. Now, going to the negative side of it, there is some question marks about how he fits in Wrigley Field. He is the biggest pull hitter in all of baseball, which is one of the reasons why he's been so consistently good. But with how Wrigley Field is structured, he would have minus 13 home runs from this year if he played his whole year in Chicago. So you would have 13 less home runs, a better way of putting it. So that is a problem there with the ballpark. And yes, that's a problem. I would agree with that. I think that is something you have to take into consideration. But I think Paredes is such a good player that even with that, I'm sure he'll just hit extra base hits more. And you also play half the season on the road, so it's not exactly like you're in Chicago 162 games a year. So still a fantastic player. I think that's something that, is something you have to think about, but overall shouldn't deter you from acquiring a player as fantastic as Paredes. Now, going to the Rays side, they are acquiring Christopher Morel and 2 other prospects. The main one is Hunter Bigby, who we'll get to in a second. But Morel is a former top prospect with this Cubs team. Tried to latch on to the Cubs' third base job for the past few years now. Really has had inconsistent offensive numbers, and now has been traded to Tampa. Now, to be honest, I don't love this trade for Tampa. I think they could have done a lot more for Paredes. I think that Morel has a lot of potential. I think Hunter Bigby will be a very good reliever in the future. I think the other prospect as well, who they got, will end up being very solid. But I just think for a player of Paredes' caliber, and so many teams trying to win this year, I think that you could have gotten more. And apparently Morel has been a guy they've wanted for a long time. They asked for him in the Tyler Glasnow trade talks in the offseason when they almost traded him to Chicago. So I guess they have had their eye on Morel, and they have maybe one of the best player development systems in all sports. So, I think you could look at it that way. But at the same time, I think that there could have been more, even with Morel. And Hunter Bigby, again, I think will be a very quality, high leverage reliever. But more than that, I just don't think so. I think that's solid, but getting an okay player like Morel, who has question marks wherever he's going to play, who hasn't been great on offense and has been horrific on defense, I think is a question mark. So I don't love this trade for Tampa, but also I get what they're doing. Now, the Rays' future is a little weird, as, of course, you're trading now Randy Arozarena, Zach Eflin, and Isaac Paredes, 3 main pieces of your team this year, 3 of your best players, but the Rays are so good that they have replacements for all these guys. I mean, Paredes, you just slot maybe the best prospect in all of baseball in Junior Camarino at the third base next year, or maybe even at the end of this year. You put him there. You have Chris Morel, who looks like he'll be playing left field with the Rays, which I think is a very good place for him. You just slot him in to replace Randy Arozarena. And then Jason Adam, who you just traded, who I'm also going to be talking about, you slot Hunter Bigby in there. So, and also Zach Eflin, who you traded, you have so many guys coming off the injured list. You have Jeffrey Springs coming off the injured list, Drew Rasmussen, Shane McClanahan. You, of course, already have Ryan Pepio, Shane Baz, Taj Bradley. The Rays have so much depth that even with trading all these guys who are great, you have the replacements on the roster. So as much as they're giving up for this year, their future looks as bright as ever, and I think they could be even better going into next year. So, just an incredible organization. They are. The way they thread the needle and be this competitive, consistent year in and year out without having the financial resources to do it is incredible, man. What a job by them. I do also want to talk about the Jason Adam trade for a second. They traded him to San Diego. I mainly want to talk about it because they got Dylan Lesko back, one of the top 100 prospects in all of baseball consistently, a top 15 draft pick by the Padres a few years ago, a guy who I have loved in the Padres system for a little while, coming out of college as well, high school I believe actually, when he was coming out of the draft, wherever it was. He has struggled this year a lot in the minor leagues, yes, but I think this is a great get by Tampa. They have developed prospects like this a lot in their future, a lot in their past, and I think getting Lesko was a huge get for them. Now, I'm not sure why San Diego traded Jason Adam for Dylan Lesko. Adam's really good. You now have a absolute shutdown back end of the bullpen of Jason Adam, Jeremiah Estrada, and Robert Suarez. A pitcher pitches 6 good innings, the game's pretty much over with that 7, 8, 9 combo, but trading Lesko for him is crazy, and I think it's only really heighten the price for rental relievers right now, which we'll talk about in our next segment as well. So that is the first segment here, really talking about the Rays altogether, going over all their trades, going over Isaac Paredes being traded to the Chicago Cubs. And yeah, just crazy trade, something I did not expect. And yeah, we'll be going to our second segment now, which is going to be talking about the Mets and their trade deadline and all the moves they have made, the injury they've had, which I'm going to talk about with Kodai Senga, of course. I'm sure you've heard by now. So yeah, going over all that, and we'll be seeing you after the break. So thanks, and bye.
I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign. I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign.
I wanna be the greatest. Everybody on the fake shit. I look around and feel like everybody is the fakest. I make this every day and I'm impatient, hoping one day I blow up from the basement. Statement, the top is so vacant. I don't hear shit that I think is amazing. Waiting for my day when I'm playing sold out shows for 1,000 faces. Hey, give me that crown, get in my way and to be put down. It ain't your place, all this my town. If I want that shit, then I'll get it right now. I'm losing it, the noose it fits. I'm losing shit, a stupid myth. You choose to live or choose to dip. You choose to fight or lose your grip and lose a gift.
I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign. I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind?
And we're back here on the GSMC Baseball Podcast, bringing you our second segment. But before we do that, I'd like to ask you again to please like and follow the show. We do get a number of questions from viewers, so to ensure that your question does get read in the air, please use the link, gsmcpodcast.net. It really does help the show, and it really does mean a lot, so thank you so much for that. And let's get back into the show for today. All right, we are going to be talking about the New York Mets and their trade deadline and the news involving them and Kodai Senga, so let's get into it. Now, everything was going just fantastic for this Mets team. Series started on Thursday against the Braves. Mets were 2 games out of the wild card versus them. And if they won the series, they would be in sole possession of the first wildcard spot and second place in the NL East. Great job. First game, beat the Braves. Did a great job beating them. Tensions, momentum was very high in Queens. As a Mets fan, I was loving it. It was fantastic. Game now going to Friday. Second game of that series. It was Friday. The black jerseys were on. And Kodai Senga, your ace, has finally returned from injury. After being out all year with an arm injury, has finally returned. And we're making a season debut against the Braves. You win this game, you're in sole possession of the first wild card spot. Everything was going great. The Mets bats were electric. They were up by like 7 within the 5th inning, and then the Mets struck. Kodai Senga going for a pop-up off the mound, falls, and gets a calf strain, and is now out for the entire rest of the regular season. All momentum dies down, and the Mets lose the next 2 games to the Braves in the series. Split the series, which is fine, and now are back in 3rd place in the NL East, and are back in last place in the wild card. Still fine, but man, the momentum was high, and Senga's injury just killed it. And the worst part was Senga looked fantastic. I was watching this game on an airplane, actually flying to Tampa Bay, as I said before. I was there for the weekend, watching the Rays game, and he looked great. I was having a great time watching the Mets swing those bats. I was having a great time watching the Ghost Fork be back in play there, and everything was going great. Mets fans were happy. All the momentum was there, and just Senga falling as soon as that happened, it just killed the momentum. And man, just the Mets can't escape themselves, can they? It was really unfortunate, and the Mets all season had planned for Senga to come back and be a big part of their team after the trade deadline. Their rotation is good, but really has lacked that number 1 ace this year. Luis Severino, very solid. Sean Manaea, very solid. But those 2 guys are solid 3-4 guys, maybe even, okay 2 and 3 guys. You need an ace. And the way Senga pitched last year, he played like an ace, and that was who they expected to come back. And the fact that Senga then is out for the rest of the year, just suddenly, not even with an arm injury, just a freak injury, falling off the mound, draining your calf, is horrible and really changes the Mets trade deadline. They already made some trades. They had made some trades before and after that, which we'll go over as well. But with that, it affects the trade deadline for the Mets. And and you have to talk about, what do the Mets do now? Where do they go from here? And I think that, first of all, you have to acquire a starting pitcher. I think that's a need at this point. You also, not only was Senga hurt, but Christian Scott was hurt as well. And also, not only was Scott hurt, he wasn't playing the greatest this year. Of course, one of the top pitching prospects in all of baseball, came up for the Mets, started off pretty solid, but then really did not get any better and just was really inconsistent. So now your rotation looks like this. You have Luis Severino, Sean Manaea, you have Jose Quintana, David Peterson, Tyler McGill, Jose Budo. That's really the 6 guys right now on your MLB roster that can make a MLB start. You also have Joey Lucchesi in the minors. You have Blade Tidwell and Brandon Swartt in the minors, but those are prospects, and Lucchesi is not on the MLB roster. So now here's what you look at. McGill, I think, is bad. I think a lot of Mets fans are over him. Let's get him out of the picture. That's 5 then. Budo has been absolutely fantastic in the bullpen. There's really no way you can get rid of him. That's 4. That's now 4 guys who can really make a start. So the Mets pitching depth that we talked about all year as being fantastic and great, that they could potentially trade from it with how many starters they have, suddenly gets really thin. And because of that, you have to acquire a starting pitcher at the deadline. I think that's very clear. The Mets obviously are going for it. They're trying to win. We'll talk about the 2 trades they made as well, which show they're trying to win. And so if you are trying to win, which we believe they are, they need a starting pitcher. There's a lot of guys that get on the market, but a lot are gone now. I thought Eric Fetty was an absolutely picture-perfect fit with this Mets team. He got traded to St. Louis. That'll be my 4th segment here, which we'll be talking about, so we'll be talking about that more. You can't get him. Andy Martino said the Mets aren't getting Jack Flaherty. So, you don't really have the prospects for a Skubal, for a Garrett Crochet. So, the question now becomes, what do the Mets do? They have to acquire a starting pitcher, and I think they have to get one by Tuesday. Obviously, they have to get one by Tuesday, but if they want to win, I think they need to. You just cannot have Tyler McGill having regular starts out here. You just can't. And also, you don't have much depth behind him as either. He's a fine depth guy, number 6 guy. That's fine, but you just can't, put him in as a regular starter. You just can't do that right now if you're trying to win a pennant, trying to go to the World Series, which this Mets team has been on fire lately. I don't see why that's an unrealistic possibility at this point. So, there's a lot of starting pitchers available. I think they need to get one. I mean, I'm going to talk about my trade line predictions like the rest of the guys who haven't been traded as well. But, obviously Jack Flaherty doesn't get traded here apparently, but Blake Snell's still out there. Apparently his value's not that high because teams don't want to take his contract on. The Mets of history have taken on bad contracts. If it's a good player, the Mets could do that. Frankie Montas, solid depth option, I think. A history in New York. Tyler Anderson, wouldn't be happy about that, but is an arm. Jameson Taillon, someone that's been connected to the Mets a lot in the past few hours. Kyle Quantrill, very solid depth piece. Zach Littell, very solid depth piece. So I think that there's a lot of ways the Mets can go, but the bottom line is they have to acquire a starting pitcher. With the Senga injury, with the way they are trying to win now, trying to go all in, which is really a different approach than before, which is trying to, maybe get two relievers, try to compete this year, but really go for next year. No. With the way they've done this year recently, they have to go all in. And I think that's really what it is right now. And I think they need to acquire a starting pitcher. And a lot of teams need a starting pitcher, and the prices have not been cheap. So it's going to be very interesting to see what they do and really interesting to watch their deadline. But they did make two other trades, which I wanted to talk about. So first off, we have Jesse Winker trading for him of the Nationals. This broke very late on Saturday night. I love this trade for the Mets. I think it was a really good job. They needed a lefty bat off the bench to be able to, be a pinch hitter option late in games, fill in for the depth in the outfield, and also start. I mean, he's batting fifth today against the righty. So with the injury to Starling Marte, with how bad DJ Stewart's been, with Harrison Bader being on the injured list for a little bit now, not the injured list, sorry, dealing with an ankle injury, I think you needed some more outfield depth, specifically a left-handed power bat, which Winker brings, of course. Has a nice history in New York with the Mets fans waving them away, all that kind of stuff. His history there. Obviously, can handle the big stage. I'm sure would love to be on the big stage. So I like this trade a lot. I think it was a really, really nice trade by the Mets to be able to get some depth in the outfield and add a hitter here. I really, really like this a lot, and I thought it was a really solid trade. And again, I think they're going all in. I think they're trying to win. Ryan Stanek, they acquired him from Seattle. Really solid bullpen arm, has some really nice stuff. Didn't do great in his Mets debut on Sunday, which was yesterday, of course, but the Mets had already lost that game, so I'm not really, too worried about it. Has some really great stuff, and was someone that David Stern targeted in the offseason as well, so obviously David Stern must see something in him that he likes, so very interested to see what that is, and very interested to see what happens there and how he plays with the Mets. But yeah, they've made some trades there, and I think that the Mets are in a very interesting spot right now because of the Senga injury. You need to acquire some starting pitching. With the way they performed lately, you could argue they are, the fourth best team in the National League. I don't think that would be a crazy thing to argue. You could argue they are the best team out of all those wild card type teams, so those 6 or 7 teams. So I'm very interested to see what they do, and I like the Winker and Stanek trades as well. Senga injury was really rough, but you got to do something. It seems unlikely that you're going to get a top line starter now unless you make a shocker trade for Blake Snell, but overall, going to be very interesting to watch and very interesting to see what they do. Now, I want to talk about another trade as well that related to the Mets because it is in the NL East, but I didn't really have a way to talk about it, and that was Carlos Estevez, the Philadelphia Phillies. Again, I really want to talk about the trade because it was pretty significant, but I couldn't really find a way other than this, so I know it's kind of a diversion from the Mets, but the Mets are facing the Phillies in the NL East, so I thought it was, something interesting there. But yeah, Estevez being traded to the Phillies, I really like this move for Philadelphia. Your closing situation has been a little iffy this year with Jose Alvarado being very up and down. Getting one of the most consistent closers in baseball over the past 2 years in Carlos Estevez from the Angels was a really, really good move. Should be able to really help out that ninth inning. Him and Alvarado moved back into a more comfortable role for him, which is the eighth inning, more as a setup man, so I really like this there. Now, it was a really high price you gave up. I mean, you gave up, first of all, a very good left-handed pitching prospect to the Angels, which could slot in as a potential top 100 prospect. So, overall, I think that it's a really tough price to give up. I mean, you gave up George Klassen, who immediately slots in as the third best Angels pitching prospect. So, that is interesting, but overall, you did give a lot up for him. I want to make that clear. I think the Angels did very well in this trade, so it allows them to get the youngster fireballer Ben Joyce into the closer role, which I'm sure he will be for the future. So it'll be interesting to see there. But yeah, I like this trade a lot for the Phillies. You should go all in this year, I think. It makes a lot of sense. You're a great team. So overall, I very much like this trade, and interested to see where the Phillies go next. But yeah, overall, I like what the Mets did, like what the Phillies did. Overall, this is about the Mets, but I want to be able to chance to talk about Carlos Estevez as well. All the trades happening, I can't keep up. There's also potentially another one talking about, which I'll go over now. But moving into our third segment, which is going to be talking about the AL East and some trades going on there. Been a lot of movement in the AL East, this division, going over 4 significant trades that did end up happening here. So yeah, going over that, and we'll talk about it then. So we'll see you after the break. So thanks, and bye.
Looking for your daily fix of sports talk without having to pay for it? GSMC Sports Network is available on YouTube. Just search GSMC Sports Network. Get your fix of daily sports talk shows on YouTube, absolutely free. NFL, college football, NBA, MLB, MMA, UFC, fantasy football, and so much more. GSMC Sports Network has shows running all day long, with new sports shows starting every 2 hours. Just like on your favorite cable sports channel, except GSMC Sports Network is absolutely free. Just search GSMC Sports Network on YouTube to catch one of your new favorite shows, like the GSMC College Football Podcast, Chip Shot Football Podcast, Hoops and Heels Women's Sports Podcast, GSMC Basketball Podcast, and so many more. Check it out for yourself. GSMC Sports Network, now available on YouTube absolutely free. Search GSMC Sports Network on YouTube right now.
And we're back here on the GSMC Baseball Podcast, bringing you our third segment, which coincidentally is going to be talking about some AL East trades. And breaking news on live here, the Mariners have just traded for the Blue Jays' Justin Turner. So that's a bit of a surprising trade. I was going to talk about before, I kind of teased it, that there was a hug watch going on. Justin Turner was randomly pulled from the game with the Blue Jays. So I thought there was a trade going down, and it's official now. Ken Rosenthal just tweeted it out. The Mariners have traded for Justin Turner, and there we go. The floodgates are opening with all the insiders I have on notification. Tweeting at Jeff Passan as well, Mark Feinsand. It is done. Justin Turner is a Seattle Mariner. That is a very interesting trade. I really like it a lot. I'm going to just go off the dome here talking about it. I think it just adds another solid veteran hitter to this Mariners team. I think that overall Turner is a very solid bat. I did have him going somewhere else in my segment 5, so I'll just skip over that, I guess. But yeah, I like this move a lot for Seattle. Again, just a very solid, good veteran bat for this Mariners team, and I think it was a really good, solid move by them. Yeah, nice job. So that's a nice segue into this AL East trades because the Blue Jays just made one. So we'll be going over the other ones now. There was a lot of movement here from this division, and I just wanted to go over 5 significant trades and talk about them. So let's get into it. So first off, we have maybe the most significant of them all. Jazz Chisholm traded from the Miami Marlins to the New York Yankees. Now, this to me was one of the most obvious and best fits of the entire deadline. I thought this made all the sense in the world. I thought Chisholm was really destined to be a Yankee. I think this made all the... I had him predicted here for a little while on my own personal trade deadline predictions that I was supposed to do Monday. Of course, he did end up getting traded on Saturday, so I didn't have a chance to go over and say that prediction. But please believe me, I thought he was going to get traded here. It just made so much sense on paper. Chisholm is a picture-perfect fit for this Yankees team. Is a great leadoff hitter, which the Yankees need. Is a lefty bat, which the Yankees need. Can play the infield, which the Yankees need. Can play the outfield, which the Yankees need. Brings a lot of energy as well to this Yankees team that has been a little iffy on that regard. So I think that's a really good. I think that's a really good fit there. So I thought overall Chisholm just made all the sense in the world for this Yankees team. Really was a picture perfect fit here, and I love this trade for this Yankees team. I think that again Chisholm brings energy to this team, which they really needed. Swag as well. He'll be able to, I think, really shine under this Yankees light. I mean, I think this is a guy that lives for the big moments with his big personality, and there's no bigger place in baseball than the Bronx. So I love this trade a lot for the Yankees. I think that it made a ton of sense, and I like what the Marlins got back as well. Agustin Ramirez, a catching prospect from the Yankees who really rose up the prospect ranks these past few weeks or so. He's a really good power-hitting catcher. A little older on the prospect side, 23, but I think he'll be up next year and add in a valuable piece to this Marlins hitting core. They don't really have the future of the catching position figured out. So I really like that the Marlins were able to acquire him. I think that it was a really good move by them. We all knew Chisholm was gone, and I think that acquiring Augustin was very, very solid. Jared Vernon as well, who I believe I'm pronouncing his name right, an infield prospect from the Yankees, also went to the Marlins in that trade. I like that as well. So I think it was a really win-win trade. The question here now is, where is Chisholm going to play? Of course, he can play center field or second base. He played center field last night, and it didn't go great. He just has not been a great fielding center fielder throughout his career. I think that second base is the place where he is going to end up being. You're getting Jason Dominguez back relatively soon, so once you get him back, there will be no open spots in the outfield. So the infield has really been where he struggled, where this team has struggled, and being able to play Chisholm at second or maybe even third, because he has a lot of athleticism. I think he can learn third base relatively quickly, or you move Labor Torres over there. I think that'll make a lot of sense, and yeah, very excited to see where Chisholm does play, but he just adds a ton of depth to your lineup, especially now with Stanton coming back. I mean, really the only black hole of your lineup is third base. I'm not sure he's going to play there. Either Gleyber Torres, who said he doesn't want to play there, but I don't really know if he has a choice in the matter, as well as Cabrera or Dieter LeMahieu. But other than that, there's really not many black holes in this lineup anymore. Anthony Volpe hasn't hit great at shortstop, but he still is solid. Brenton Rice has some solid potential at first. So center field has just become a lot better. DH become a lot better. And overall, I like this Chisholm trade a lot for this Yankees team. Adds a ton of depth here, and yeah, really good. The second one I wanted to talk about was Quinn Priester to the Boston Red Sox, a classic baseball trade here. The Red Sox traded a hitting prospect, Nick York, for a pitching prospect, Quinn Priester. Pirates needed bats, Red Sox needed pitching. Pretty fair there. Priester has not been someone that really has done great in his MLB career so far, but he's a good frame for a pitcher, has some good stuff, I think, and the Red Sox needed some pitching depth, so I think that it's a really solid move to be able to get him. York wasn't really a fit long-term on this Red Sox team, I think, with the kind of prospects they have and the type of young players they have in the infield. So trading him to a Pirates team that really needed some good bats was a good, solid move, and I like it a lot. I think Priester was a good move by this Red Sox team. They needed pitching depth. They've now solved that, getting James Paxton and Priester as well. So really nice move by the Red Sox. And they made another one as well, which I like even more. Danny Jansen. He made his Red Sox debut as well. That is him in the picture there. I think that Jansen was a fantastic addition by this Red Sox team. Not something that I, envisioned them doing, acquiring a catcher, because I pretty much thought their catching situation was set down with Reese McGuire as the backup and Connor Wong as the starter. But Connor Wong does have some versatility. Played first base, second base, and third base in the minor leagues, and it seems like he's going to be doing that a lot more now with Jansen. It seems like Jansen will be playing catcher and DH for this Red Sox team a good amount, and then when Jansen is catching, Connor Wong will, of course, either be getting a day off or playing a lot of second and third base, which is very interesting. Being able to utilize his versatility, I think, is something that is really good for the Red Sox. And look, they needed another right-handed bat. Being able to go out of the box here and get Danny Jansen was very solid, and I like this trade a lot. I don't think they gave up that much to get him as well. And he's familiar with the division as well. I'm sure he's played in Fenway hundreds and hundreds of times, of course, in his career with the Blue Jays there. So I like that overall. I like this trade overall for both sides, being able to trade the Blue Jays, trade Danny Jansen, move on from him with all the catching you have. And, of course, you're trying to sell at the deadline. And Danny Jansen, they're going to Boston. I like this trade a lot. I think that it was very solid, and I think it was a really good fit for this Red Sox team. And yeah. Again, Red Sox are trying to go for the wild card, something we did not expect from them at the start of the year. So being able to add a nice starting pitcher here in Priester, of course, added Paxton before, which I talked about, and then adding Danny Jansen, I really like. So props to the Red Sox for being able to get this trade done, and I like it a lot. Finally, we have maybe the most significant trade of them all, Zach Eflin to the Baltimore Orioles. Now, the Rays trading Eflin in division was not something I foresaw. To be honest with you, I was dead set on Eflin going to the Cardinals. I thought that was a picture-perfect fit, but of course the Cardinals got a different starting pitcher, which we'll talk about in the next segment. So, when he was traded to the Orioles, I was shocked, honestly, but I loved this trade for them. The Orioles needed a frontline starting pitcher, and getting one like Eflin was a great, great job. Also, you're eating up his money. He has $18 million on his contract next year, and having the financial resources you do, now with the new owner, utilizing them was a really, really good job at Baltimore. So props to them. And yeah, you now have an elite top three. You have Grayson Rodriguez, Corbin Burnes, and Zach Eflin, three very good starting pitchers. And with the lineup you have, I mean, this team is going to be really, really hard to face in the playoffs. I absolutely love what they're bringing here. I think that Burns and Eflin are a really solid tandem at the top with how well Eflin's done since going over to Tampa Bay. Grayson Rodriguez, of course, also been very good this season. You also have some other depth pieces as well, like Cade Povich, who I think is a very solid number 4 starter, someone who can make a playoff start if you need him to. So overall, I love this trade for the Orioles. I thought it was absolutely fantastic to be able to get Eflin, get another frontline starting pitcher, which you needed. They're going all in, and I love this trade for Baltimore. I thought it was a fantastic job. I thought it was a little weird that the Rays would trade Zach Eflin to Baltimore when he's going to be on their roster next year, when the Rays are probably going to be try competitive next year, but I guess that's really not something they care about. So overall, I like that the Orioles were able to get Eflin. Eflin seemed like excess goods for the Rays with all the starting pitching they have next year with all the guys coming off the injured list. So it made sense to move on from him, especially at the $18 million that he's going to be owed next year. So good move for both sides, and I like it a lot. So yeah, really, really good move by Baltimore. This team is going to be scary, and yeah, just keep adding to that rotation. So that is it for the AL East trades here. We had a big one at the start, Justin Turner getting traded to Seattle, which did happen right now as I'm on stream, which is very exciting to be able to break that there. So, yeah, overall, a lot of AL East trades. This division is going to be even more active. I'd say today and tomorrow as well. Be very exciting to watch it. So, yeah, very exciting time to be a baseball fan. It's a very exciting time to be a Rays, Orioles, Red Sox, or Yankees fan. And, yeah, a lot to like here. So, that is my third segment here, talking about some AL East trades. Moving into our fourth segment, which is going to be talking about the blockbuster of the Dodgers, Cardinals, and White Sox trade. That did happen about an hour and a half before I went on live. So we'll be going over that, and we'll be talking about it. So we'll see you after the break. Thanks, and bye.
For the best and latest podcasts available anywhere, go to the podcast app on your cell phone and type in GSMC. To access free content-rich podcasts on health and wellness, book reviews, sports, entertainment, relationships, social media, movies, technology, finance, and even weird news. Subscribe and download the GSMC Podcast Network's family of shows, available everywhere podcasts are found.
And we're back here on the GSMC Baseball Podcast, bringing you our fourth segment, which is going to be talking about, let's get that up here, the Dodgers, Cardinals, and White Sox blockbuster. That did happen only a few hours ago. I did want to get up here and give my thoughts on it. A really shocking trade in all regards. I really did not have this on the docket today, and let's get into it. So, yeah, there was some rumors circulating last night that this would end up being the case, that it was a 3-team trade in consideration with the Dodgers, Cardinals, and White Sox. And I thought it made sense on paper, but, the source wasn't the greatest guy. But, hey, he got it right, so props to him. But overall, it did happen, and wow. So I want to go over just what everyone got in return and just go over the entire package and going over each team individually as well. So, first off, let's start off with the, let's get them up here, the Dodgers. So, the Dodgers in this deal are acquiring Michael Kopech from the Chicago White Sox, a reliever, and Tommy Edman, a utility player from the Cardinals. The Cardinals are then getting Tommy Pham, a former outfielder from them. He played there like 6 years ago, so that's an old jersey, obviously. And also starting pitcher, Eric Fetty. And the White Sox are getting Miguel Vargas and some other prospects as well in exchange for Kopech, Fetty, and Pham. So, first off, let's start with the Dodgers here. They get Michael Kopech and Tommy Edman. So, Kopech is someone that I did have predicted to the Dodgers in my trade deadline predictions once, so got that right there. That's really nice. I thought Kopech made a ton of sense for this Dodgers team. Just is the classic big-name reliever who has really struggled this year but has insane stuff that a good organization like the Dodgers or Rays would fix. I thought it made sense for the Dodgers, and they end up getting him here. And, yeah, I think it makes a ton of sense. Kopech is just electric stuff, fastball slider combination that could strike at anyone in this league when it's at its best. Control problems, yes, but the way the Dodgers work and the organization they have, I wouldn't be surprised if Kopech is going to be a great closer for them in the future. Anthony in the chat here asked, any update on Tanner Scott? No, he has not been traded yet, and there have not been that many rumors about him, but I'll be going over him in my fifth and final segment, going over where I think he is getting traded, so stick around for that if you want to see my opinion on it. But going back to this Dodgers, Cardinals, White Sox thing here, I think Kopech was a really nice addition to this Dodgers bullpen. I think, again, he has really electric stuff, and being able to plug him into this bullpen is a really nice job by them. And I think the way that the Dodgers will be able to, I think at least, develop him and make him a lockdown relief pitcher, I think he could really be in that 8th inning now with Evan Phillips once they get him up to his full potential. I really like that. And also, Tommy Edman. I love that fit. I think Edman is one of the best utility players in all of baseball. Has been injured all year, yes, but when healthy, has been a very solid hitter for this Cardinals team. Is just a few years removed from a 6-WAR season with St. Louis, so the fact that the Dodgers were able to get him, I think, is a really good move. I believe he'll play shortstop with them. That's just my educated guess. That way you get to move Mookie Betts back to second base or in the corner outfield where he is more comfortable. Edman is one of the best defenders in all of baseball, is a solid hitter, and of course can move around positions as well. So if you want to play center field, he can play second base, he can play third base, left field, right field, really any position but first base and catcher. So I love this move for the Dodgers. I think that Edman really makes a lot of sense for their team, and I really like the fit. Anthony says in the chat here, I'm surprised LA didn't get Luis Robert. Yeah, I think Robert was a really great fit on paper for the Dodgers, but I just don't think that the White Sox are desperate to move him. I think moving him in the offseason would make more sense for him because they would then have the ability to go all offseason, kind of get a bidding war started for him, which I'm sure many teams would line up for him because of how fantastic he is, how much years of control he has, how cheap of a contract it is. So I think that it makes more sense for the White Sox to trade him in the offseason, but at the same time, sorry about that. If Robert is moved here at the deadline, and it is to the Dodgers, I would not be surprised. I don't really think Edman precludes them from getting a center fielder, which I do think they need. I just don't think Andy Palacios is a great fit out there. So I like this trade a lot for LA, getting two of their needs now in a shortstop and a relief pitcher, Kopech and Edman. I like it a lot. Cardinals, getting two of their needs done as well. Tommy Pham, they needed a bat, and getting a reliable one in Pham, who of course has history playing in St. Louis, I think makes a lot of sense and a really good move. Pham is a very polarizing figure who always makes sure clubhouses are changed when he steps into them, and I really, really love this fit for St. Louis. Your outfield hasn't been the greatest this year with the Tommy Pham injuries, but Alec Burleson has been better as of recently, so moving Tommy Pham into this corner outfield is going to be a really, really nice move for them, and I really like that they were able to get him. Didn't give up much to get him, and I like this a lot. You also got one of the big players of this trade deadline, which is Eric Fetty, one of the biggest names in the entire trade deadline. So being able to get him for this Cardinals team is absolutely a great job. And yeah, really, really fantastic ad by this Cardinals team. They needed a frontline starting pitcher, and the way Fetty has pitched this year, I do think he is that. This is someone I've wanted the Mets to get for months now, back to the offseason as well. I absolutely love this fit for St. Louis. Great job getting him. You needed a starting pitcher, and being able to finally get that starting pitcher that you needed is a really good job. And also, he's under contract cheap for next year. You now have guaranteed at the top of your rotation Sonny Gray and Eric Fetty. You can also have Tink Hence and Quinn Matthews come up and be part of your rotation as well next year. So I really like that the Cardinals were able to get Fetty. I think is a really good fit. And yeah, I love this. Anthony in the chat here again says, I'm surprised the Cardinals didn't go get Jazz. I don't know if Jazz is the best fit for the Cardinals. I thought the Yankees, honestly, were the best fit for him overall, being able to play second base, something that they desperately needed. I think Jazz would have made sense with the Cardinals, as he has a lot of versatility, which the Cardinals do love, looking at the history of their players, but I just don't think that it was a huge need to be able to go all out for and give up the prospect capital that you needed to get Jazz. Again, I think he's a really good fit for them, but I think starting pitching was a bigger need, and that's what they got here, obviously, in getting Fetty. I love this trade for them. Really good job being able to get one of the top starting pitchers on this market. And yeah, I love this trade, and going into next year, the rotation looks a lot better. Now, the White Sox in this trade traded 3 out of 4 guys. I mean, they traded Kopech, they traded Pham, they traded Fetty. The Cardinals traded Tommy Edman, but they got back Eric Fetty. So who did the White Sox get back? They got back Miguel Vargas, they got back then prospects Alexander Albertis and Gerald Perez. So, first going over who I consider the main piece of this trade, Miguel Vargas. Very interesting addition here. Vargas was a top prospect for the Dodgers for a few years. Came up with the Dodgers last year and got an everyday starting job. I'm not sure if it was third baseman in the outfield, but did, and really didn't make the most of it. As you know, since then, really not made the most of his opportunities whenever he got it, and has not become a great prospect for them, and has kind of been phased out in this Dodgers team. So being able to get a guy with a ton of talent still, a fresh start in a team that really does not have much expectations, I think was a really good move by the Dodgers. And also, I like getting him a lot for this White Sox team. I think it was a really good move by them. I like getting Vargas. I really like getting Vargas, and I think, honestly, it was a fantastic move by them. So, really nice job there. They also acquired Alexander Albertis, a infield prospect in A-ball for the Dodgers. Has done really well there. Has an ETA of 2027. Has some nice tools for this Dodgers team. I really like what he's able to bring to them. And overall, I think that this is a really nice addition to the farm system of this White Sox team. You also are getting Gerald Perez, another infield prospect for this Dodgers team. Another guy who is going to be up later at 2027. Is an A-ball prospect right now, 19 years old. Has done really well in A-ball this year. So I think that overall, I like this trade for White Sox. I am a little underwhelmed with the prospect capital they got back. I think that they could have done a little better considering how valued Fedde was in the market. But if they really like Miguel Vargas, I get that. I like him as well. So I don't think it was horrible. I think maybe if we're nitpicking, they could have done a little better. But I like the prospects they got back. I think they project to be long-term pieces. Have all the time in the world to develop here in this White Sox organization that is going into a deep rebuild. And being able to have Vargas now as a player who can try to develop here with this White Sox team, I really like it. So, yeah, I like this team. I like this trade for all sides, honestly. White Sox get some good prospects back for three guys that weren't going to be in the long-term futures. Dodgers fill two of their needs, and the Cardinals fill two of their needs as well. Anthony is asking again, do the Cardinals go after Andrew Nardi? I think he'll be a good fit there. Yeah, Nardi is a very solid left-handed reliever with this Marlins team. I think that he would make a lot of sense for really any team, and Cardinals could bulk up that bullpen even more, even with all the great players they have in the back end. So I think that Nardi would make a lot of sense for any team, and I don't see why Cardinals would be different. So I think that makes a lot of sense. But overall, with this three-team blockbuster, I love it. I think it's a classic baseball trade. Dodgers got what they needed. Cardinals got what they needed. White Sox got some prospects. I think both the Dodgers and the Cardinals did extraordinarily well. I think the Cardinals really did absolutely fantastic. I love this trade for them. Love it. Great job by them for finally recognizing that they needed a frontline starting pitcher. And they got it and didn't have to give up any of their real top prospects for it as well because they had Tommy Edman. A fantastic trade by this Cardinals team. Really fantastic trade for all sides, and I love it. But really, I want to specifically mention the Cardinals. I love the trade for them. So yeah, that is our fourth segment here, going over this blockbuster trade that happened today with the White Sox, Cardinals, and Dodgers, all three teams here. We'll be going into our fifth and final segment, which is going to be talking about all the trade deadline predictions I have, the rest of the guys who have not been traded, going over where I do think they will end up getting moved. So yeah, very excited to go over that. And it is trading, of course, after the Justin Turner trade, so we'll be changing that. But yeah, be going over that, and we'll see you after the fourth and final break. So thanks, and bye. we're back here on the GSMC Baseball Podcast, bringing you our fifth and final segment for today, which is going to be going over my rest of the trade deadline predictions. Of course, the trade deadline is going to be ending tomorrow at 6 o'clock. So tomorrow when I go live at 3:30 to 4:30, I'll be going over all the massive trades that happen then. But I did want to predict the guys that are still available in the market here, where I do think they end up getting traded, why, and there's a lot of names on this list, so I'm just going to get straight into it. First off, we have Tarek Skubal. I don't think he's traded. I kind of think this is all just noise. I think the Tigers are just doing their due diligence because they have such a valuable player here, because of how disappointing this team has been. I still don't think he's traded, and I really don't think it's going to be likely at all. Garrett Crochet, originally I thought he was a lock to get traded to the Orioles, but with the news that he is only going to pitch in October with an extension and wants to remain a starter, I think that it doesn't make sense for the White Sox to trade him now. I don't think they'll get the appropriate value they want out of him because of this, and I think it makes more sense to wait for the offseason to trade him because you'll have a lot more teams available to get him. A lot more teams will have their prospect capital sorted out, be able to know what direction they're going in. I think that overall, that kind of trade can wait for the offseason. Luis Robert, also not traded. Again, same thing. I don't think that the White Sox will get the appropriate value for him at this trade deadline. Mason Miller, last one I promise, not traded. I don't think that he was ever going to get traded. I don't, the A's want to trade him, even though I think they should. And now with him going on the injured list after punching the table, I don't think he's going to get traded. So those are the four big guys that I want to talk about that I don't think we're getting traded. But after this, I promise I'm going to have some real predictions. So first off, Jack Flaherty. I think Jack Flaherty ends up getting traded to the Los Angeles Dodgers. Flaherty was actually scratched from his start today, so it seems like a trade is close. Not sure to where, but I think that the Dodgers make a ton of sense for Flaherty. He's from LA. Dodgers need a frontline starting pitcher. Even with acquiring Edman and Kopech, they desperately need a starting pitcher, and I think Flaherty makes a lot of sense. I'm sure they'd also reach a long-term deal with him in free agency if they traded for him. Again, is from LA, is a frontline starting pitcher, one of the best guys available on this market. Dodgers have the prospect capital to really get any player they want, so they go make a lot of sense for Flaherty to go to the Dodgers, and that's where I do have him going. Yandy Diaz of the Rays is next. I have him going to the Texas Rangers. When there was an article about if the Rangers were going to buy or sell or not, and they said they were going to buy, Yandy Diaz was a name specifically mentioned by Ken Rosenthal in the article about a player they could trade for, and I think it makes all the sense in the world to be able to trade for Yandy Diaz if you are the Texas Rangers. Diaz is exactly what they need, a right-handed bat that can play first base, that can play DH as well. I think he makes a lot of sense for this Rangers lineup. They want to buy, they want to go all in, and I think getting Diaz, an older player who still has years of control, is a veteran bat, has experience in the playoffs as well, makes a lot of sense for Texas, and Tampa's obviously shown a willingness to move him with all the rumors surrounding him, obviously trading as well for other significant players on their roster. So I think it's kind of about, for the Rays, kind of phasing out the old generation, bringing in the new guys like they do every 2 or 3 years or so. So I think getting Diaz would be a really good move by this Rangers team, and I think that's where he ends up going. Yusei Kikuchi is next. Blue Jays are selling. Kikuchi is a rental starting pitcher, and makes all the sense in the world to get traded. I think he gets traded to the Minnesota Twins. They have consistently been one of the most talked about teams for Kikuchi. To get him, I think it makes all the sense in the world. There has been some rumors that they won't trade for anyone significant at the deadline because of financial constraints, but I think in the end, common sense will prevail, and that Kikuchi will end up being traded to the Twins. Twins need a starting pitcher. Makes a lot of sense. And yeah, the Twins have experience knowing how to deal with Japanese pitchers as well. So I think Kikuchi makes all the sense in the world to go to the Twins, and I think that's where he does end up getting traded here, trying to win that AL Central. Next, we are going to be talking about Brent Rooker of the A's. Brent Rooker I originally had going to the Seattle Mariners. I thought that would make a lot of sense, but with recent rumors going about, I do not think he will be traded. Apparently the A's really want to hang on to Brent Rooker for some odd reason. Don't know why. He's a DH. He's older. He has years of control. Teams would give up a ton to get him, and you're obviously rebuilding, so I don't know why you're not trading him, but A's are going to A, right? I mean, what are you going to do about it? So I think they should trade him. I don't think they will because of the rumors saying they don't really want to, so I don't think he will be traded here. Tanner Scott, the best closer on the market, I have him going to the Kansas City Royals. Royals desperately need bullpen help. I think they go all in trying to get that help and get Tanner Scott here. I think it makes all the sense in the world, and I think the Royals will recognize that this team is absolutely fantastic, and trading for a closer of the caliber of Tanner Scott makes them such a better team, and I think that's where he goes. A lot of teams are going to be going for him. Dodgers, Yankees, basically all the big market competitive teams, but I think that overall Tanner Scott will end up going to the Kansas City Royals. Next, we have Luis Rengifo. I don't think he'll be traded. I think that there just isn't a clear fit for Luis Rengifo in the trade market. Very good player, but with a year of control after this as well. The Angels don't have to trade him just to trade him. They can shop him in the offseason as well and then trade him there. So I think that's really what will happen. I think the Yankees make sense, but I don't think he plays good enough defense to really fit for this Yankees team. So I don't think he'll get traded. Pete Fairbanks, there was a lot of rumors swirling that he was traded to the Yankees, but that deal ended up not coming to fruition, and he is still in the Rays, and I don't think he is traded by this Rays team. So a few reasons for that. First of all, an article came out saying that the Rays still view Fairbanks as a big part of their core, and with them wanting to be competitive next year, they want to keep him as the big-time arm in their bullpen, which I get. Also, Fairbanks has a condition, something with him where he can't pitch in the cold. So there's a lot of teams that pitch there's a lot of teams in the cold weather nowadays. I mean, when it's October, what's really going to happen there? So I think that also that complicates things. I mean, if you're the Phillies, for example, who needed a closer before trading for Estevez, you're not going to go top prospects for a guy who can't pitch in your ballpark in October because it's cold outside. So kind of unfortunate there, but I also think that complicates his trade value for Tampa Bay. Next, we have one of the biggest names on the market, Blake Snell. I think Blake Snell ends up getting traded to the New York Yankees. I think that this is going to be the most surprising trade of the deadline, but I think that overall, actually, never mind. I was going to say that the Yankees are probably going to trade for Blake Snell, but the Yankees, according to Bob Nightingale, so that's a question mark, are in extensive trade talks for Jack Flaherty. Wow. I don't know if this is going to come to fruition here, but wow. Trading for Flaherty would be a huge addition here for this Yankees team. Apparently they would trade Nestor Cortez as well if they land Flaherty, so that's something to watch out for. But I'm still going to go with what I was going to say about Snell, but keep an eye out for Flaherty and the Yankees. Wow, would that be an incredible move for them. I think that Snell gets traded there because the Yankees have shown a ton of interest in him in the offseason. He's friends with Aaron Judge, and apparently Aaron Judge calls the shots with the Yankees organization. So I think that overall, adding Snell to this Yankees team where they know they have to go all in, they've shown interest in the past, he's buddy-buddy with your superstar, I think that trading for Snell makes all the sense in the world for the Yankees. They need a frontline starting pitcher. They might get that with Flaherty, actually, now, who knows, but yeah, wow. I think Snell gets traded here, but man, I'm going to have to see if Jack Flaherty gets traded there. Wow. Taylor Rogers of the Giants, I think he gets traded to the Mets. I think Rogers is a very good lefty reliever who also has a huge contract. Mets need both. The Mets can use a lefty reliever. They can take on that contract, which not a lot of teams can do. I think Rogers is a pitcher-perfect fit here. Brian De La Cruz of the Marlins, I think he gets traded to the Pittsburgh Pirates. I think that De La Cruz is a very good young bat, and the Marlins and Pirates have been talked about in trade talks with Jazz Chisholm, so I think pivoting to Brian De La Cruz once Chisholm was traded to the Yankees makes a lot of sense. So De La Cruz would really help out this young Pirates core, and I think that overall it would make a lot of sense for Brian De La Cruz to be able to go to this Pirates team. I think they really do need to get a star bat, and I think De La Cruz would really fit that. John Brebbia of the White Sox, I am going to the Padres. Padres need some bullpen help. They can make sense here. Hector Neris goes to the Yankees, I think. Yankees showed a lot of interest in him in the offseason. Yankees need some bullpen help. Makes sense to me there. Lucas Erceg, one of the top relievers on the market. I have him going to the Red Sox. I don't really know why. Kind of just seems like a Red Sox. I mean, everyone could use bullpen help. I think the Red Sox being able to acquire a controllable bullpen arm at the end of their pen would make a lot of sense, and I think Erceg does end up going there, but that's kind of just a shot in the dark. After that, Trevor Rogers, a controllable starting pitcher from the Marlins, who's had a pretty okay season, but I think has a lot of more potential in that arm as well. I'm going to the Cleveland Guardians. Guardians need a rotation arm, need a controllable one as well. Acquiring Rogers here makes a ton of sense. They have very good pitcher development as well in their past, so I think being able to develop a guy like Trevor Rogers make a ton of sense for them, and I would like this move a lot if I was a Guardians fan. Michael Conforto, I have him going to Milwaukee Brewers. Brewers need a left-handed power bat in the outfield. Conforto can do that. Be that easy. Make a lot of sense. After that, we have Lane Thomas. I have him going to the Philadelphia Phillies. Apparently, the Phillies have said they're done getting outfielders after the Austin Hayes trade, but I don't really believe them. Thomas has been consistently connected to this Phillies team, and I think he would be a great right-handed power fit with this Phillies team. Would really help out a lot, and I think it would make a ton of sense for the Phillies to get him. Not sure if the Nationals would trade him in the division, but is what it is. Elias Diaz, I have him going to the San Diego Padres. Padres need catching help. Diaz is a catcher, veteran, good hitting catcher. Makes a lot of sense here. Taylor Ward, I have him going to the Pirates. The second big outfield bat that I have the Pirates acquiring. Ward is a very solid player, been a very solid player for a long time with this Angels team, and is under control for a good amount of years now with this Pittsburgh team. And I think being able to acquire him would be a really good move. They've been connected to him a lot as well on here, and I think it will be a really good move. You asked about Jake Berger here, Anthony, in the chat. I have him going also to the Pirates. I think that Berger makes a lot of sense for this Pirates team. Is a nice infielder they can buy low on, but also has a ton of potential. I mean, he was really good last year with the White Sox and the Marlins, so I think that Berger makes some sense for them for the Pirates here, but not exactly sure about that. Kind of a shot in the dark, but I think makes some logical sense. Kyle Finnegan, one of the better relief arms on this list. I think he goes to the Texas Rangers. Rangers need some bullpen help. Finnegan would help them there. I had Justin Turner originally going to the Yankees. Obviously, that's not going to happen anymore. Tyler Anderson, I have him going to the Milwaukee Brewers. The Brewers need a veteran starting pitcher and a controllable one at that. And as much as Tyler Anderson probably isn't going to continue how well he's done this year, I think he makes just a lot of sense for this Brewers team, and acquiring him would really make them a much, much better team. So I think that Tyler Anderson makes a ton of sense for this Milwaukee team. Kyle Quantrill, I have him going to the Houston Astros. Astros need a controllable starting pitcher. Kyle Quantrill has had a nice season there in Colorado. Get him into Houston, help him out, get him to help out that depleted pitching staff. I think makes a ton of sense here. Brandon Lau, I don't think he's traded by the Rays. I think they got to keep someone in that infield right, and I think he's been a Ray for a long time. Has kind of become a franchise star there, so I don't think they trade him. Chad Green, I have him going to the Arizona Diamondbacks. I think just makes some sense there in the back end of that bullpen. Zach Littell, I have him going to the New York Mets. Mets need a starting pitcher. Littell is a starting pitcher. Makes some sense there. And, I think he goes to the Mets. And finally, Mark Canha, I have him going to the Seattle Mariners. Has been connected to the Mariners for the past few years now, whether that's in free agency or the trade rumors. I think it finally comes to fruition, and they add him as a corner veteran bat to help out this young offensive team that needs some help. Have already acquired Randy Arozarena and Justin Turner, but they are not done and need another bat, and I think Canha makes some sense here. So that is my show today, guys. I want to thank you so much for watching. The trade deadline madness has officially begun, as I said, and very, very exciting to be able to talk about all this. I'll talk about more trades tomorrow, all the stuff that's going to happen. I'm sure there's going to be a ton of things that happen tonight. I'm sure a bunch of trades will happen right after I get off stream. So, thank you guys again so much for watching. I love the trade deadline. It's so much fun. Be sure to come here tomorrow and talk about everything that's going on in the trade deadline here with me, 3:30 to 4:30. Thanks, guys, and bye.
Let's go. I wake up to a little bit of drool on my pillow, feel like it's gonna be a bad day. Yeah, I'm tired of shit, and the coffee ain't hit yet, damn, ain't that great.